Hi, my name's B. Forbes, and I spent 37 years as an artist. The reason why I'm doing this video is because you may know or love someone who needs a little inspiration. And if you do, feel free to forward them this video. All I ever did in my adult life was be an artist. It's all I ever thought about. Being an artist had become my reality, sadly. And I hate to say this because it sounds so arrogant, but I have to tell the whole story. I was also doing some radio and television and being an artist, hanging out at the track with the NASCAR drivers. And I was even paid to wear sunglasses. Can you imagine that? I thought I was on a roll. It had even gotten to a point where if I did an original, I just started a rumor that I had one and sat back and waited for the phone to ring. I used to say, and I mean this all the time, all I need is my right hand and one eye to make a living. That was before everything changed. See, when I was 48 years old, I went to bed just like every other night. I took it for granted. I was seemingly a healthy guy. I woke up at 5:15 in the morning and felt really strange. I mean, way out of sorts. Thought about getting out of bed and walking around to gauge my condition. Instead, I just rolled over to go back to sleep. When I did, it felt like somebody had bowled my head down the street. I got out of bed and crashed into the wall, hitting my right side so hard I knocked skin off my torso, my forearm, and my wrist, and I collapsed on the floor. I'd suffered a stroke, a massive stroke. My entire right side was paralyzed. I mean, it makes me sick just to recount that time right now. All I really knew then was that I was all alone and I needed to act fast, and there was no one there to help me. When the ambulance got me to the hospital, the ER doctor informed me that he believed I was having a panic attack. So he gave me a couple of muscle relaxers and dimmed the lights, so I could calm down. Meanwhile, my stroke seeded roots in my brain like a tree trunk. But that's another story for another time. At that point, I'd had enough medical experts and professionals and frankly didn't want them near me or my body. I felt I'd earned the right to be void of trust or faith in them. In that regard, I was quite clear. So it seemed only natural for me to rehab myself. I'd started by squeezing a tennis ball and trying to lift a 4-pound weight that a friend had brought me. I was starting all over again. I felt a grown man shouldn't have to teach himself how to tie his shoes again, but I had to. Eventually, I was able to walk around a little bit outside, albeit dragging my foot around like Quasimodo. You talk about an ego check. Walk around in public when you're paralyzed. Now, before anybody gets a crazy notion to feel sorry for me, please don't. After a ton of prayer, faith in God, help from the Christ, and a lot of really hard work, I've been blessed with a full recovery. Now, when I say a full recovery, I mean you could spend months around me and never see any residual effects. I have a little numbness, that's it. I used to go to the grocery store just to grab a grocery cart and walk up and down the aisles. It was great for therapy. The manager of the store gave me permission to do this. And what fascinated me was I made some really good friends at the grocery store. These faces I saw every day and spoke to on occasion, like, "Where's the ketchup?" They turned out to be really cool human beings. I never made friends with anyone at a grocery store. I'd always been too busy for that kind of stuff. But I found these people so much nicer than I had ever imagined. And then it dawned on me. I had become so arrogant and pompous and an ass, I didn't even like myself. Which is why I'm so happy the stroke happened. Over the next year, I'd lost everything. I lost all my money, my ability to generate an income. I lost my career. I even lost all my high-resolution photographs of all my art. When you're physically wounded like I was and failure reaches like critical mass, it becomes like the proverbial car sliding backwards down an icy hill. There's no disability insurance for an artist. Certainly not any an insurance company is going to pay on, regardless of how happy they are to take your monthly payments. Found that out the hard way. I quickly went from the first person the usual suspects always called when they had an important cause that included my donation for some art auction, a painting I didn't like, quote, leaning up against the wall, end quote, especially when somebody was sick. And when I told them that I couldn't donate anything because I was paralyzed, you should have seen how fast they got off the phone. None of them asked, do you need our help? Unfortunately, the stroke stole my single biggest asset. It's something that I groomed to work for me perfectly. I had spent an entire career training my brain to function using the right side, and it's essential to processing reality in an artful way. That stopped immediately. I saw nothing the same way. It was if tomorrow you're driving a car just like today, except it's a European car, so the wheel's on the opposite side and you drive on the opposite side of the road. I mean, you can pull it off, but I wouldn't suggest texting while you're driving down the road for a while. Look, reality dictates that it's impossible for you to sit at a romantic dinner with the person you most love and you're listening to romantic music playing in the background, enjoying a gentle breeze blowing through the open windows because you're on the beachfront and it's just dimmed lighting. You're recalling the warm smiles of your happy children, enjoying every blossoming emotion, while you're balancing your checkbook. Human mind isn't intended to work that way. So if you're an artist, you got to put away the checkbook and the calculator, and you got to enjoy how you're feeling. So then I decided to write a book about a couple of guys on the eastern shore of Virginia who duck hunted together with 125,000 words, something like that. And I found that typing was really good therapy. I mean, it opens up communication between you and your paralyzed side. I found the whole book experience flushed a lot of stuff out of me. It really was a thorough purging. And then I just sort of existed. Didn't even really know myself, but I took an awful lot of whacks to the ego, I can promise you that. And then it happened. Not long ago, a really dear friend of mine sent me some encouragement. It was in the form of a thumb drive. She made high-resolution scans of all this art I had done for my coffee table book just before my stroke. As I looked through every one of the paintings, it was as if I was seeing, photos of the family I loved, members I hadn't seen for years. It was magnificent emotions. Each and every painting was like a child, and I was proud of what I had done as an artist. And as I'm leafing through these photographs of my artwork, each one like a child of mine, I noticed something, and it was amazing. It was fantastic. I was looking at my art for the first time since my stroke from the right side of my brain. Right then, I realized what I'd missed about not painting. My working relationship with God during my entire career. That's what I missed. See, when I first started painting, I didn't know what I was doing. I had zero talent, none, nada, zilch. I got witnesses that'll gladly tell you that. So I made a deal with God, and here's how it worked. I asked him to guide my hand and my eye and my thoughts, to use me as his vessel to display his miracles of nature, and in return I'd give him full credit for all my abilities that he gave me by putting a TG next to my name. It stood for Thanks God. And I really don't believe I ever forgot to do that on any painting I had ever done. Since I was rejoined with my art, if you will, I could see my paintings the way I do now. I decided to paint again. And I'm diving into it with all the faith that God will guide my hand the way he always has. And that the technique part of painting is like riding a bicycle. Sometimes I think about it and it gets me extremely excited, and other times, literally, it makes me sick to my stomach with fear. But I have to overcome those fears. This decision or process feels very natural. Most importantly, it will give me my time with God back, working together back, and I dearly miss that part. Look, the mathematical odds that I, as a 48-year-old, seemingly healthy man, would have a stroke is itself pretty extraordinary. That my stroke would claim the side that I used to paint, even more extraordinary. I don't know why I had a stroke. Not surely. I don't know. But I have a feeling it's because God had to do it to knock me off my damned pedestal and then bust me up into small little bit. It was like he took a boulder and wound up with sand and used it for concrete to build something much better. And in that regard, thank God for my stroke. People from the medical community had told me that the location of my stroke and the size of it makes a full recovery a medical miracle. It just never happens. And some people, they just haven't had enough assets, enough experiences in life to understand just how I feel. They don't believe in miracles and they don't believe in God because they haven't lived through them. If you haven't suffered a stroke the way I did, you ought to be the faithful one, not me. And if it's in God's grace to give me my gifts back, then, that's incredible. I'll run with it. What will stay the same? My art will have nothing to do with me. It'll all be about God. So, am I blessed? I don't know. We're going to find out. I'm going to find out if this ex-paralyzed, ex-artist can still paint. And if God doesn't want me to, if it's not in His will, then we, all of us, have my old art to enjoy.